And right now it's time for that time when we have our special guest. Tonight's special guest is Martin Crump. It's just 6 weeks away from the 50th anniversary of Barry Crump's book, A Good Keen Man. The question for his son Martin is, in our brave new PC world, would New Zealand allow another good keen man? We welcome Martin Crump as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Martin Crump, welcome. Welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, and I hope your beat is still going on, Martin.
My beat's going well, thanks, Gerard.
Yes, we hear you every week, Radio Live, 100.6, isn't it?
Well done.
In Auckland.
Yes, and 7:02 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
Great station, Radio Live.
It's going well.
Wonderful job. Now, you're in here today, Martin. Very, very important date is coming up, and so we've got Martin in today. It's the 50th anniversary of the release of A Good Keen Man. Wow. Your dad.
That's exciting.
Wow. What do you feel?
I'm feeling excited about it. It's been a great project. The Crump family now own the copyright to all things Crump. So we've been involved in this project for the last couple of years. We've got a good publisher on board with us and Hashettes, and away we go. So it's got a beautiful cover. People are going to want to own the book for the cover alone, Gerard. They've done a great job. Very retro from that era of 1959 when it was first written.
59.
59, yeah.
Seems ages ago, doesn't it? But what is interesting, you know, we have a PC world now, don't we? A politically correct world. Could a man like Barry Crump exist in today's New Zealand?
Shortly after he died in 96, July 3rd, 96, so it's just gone 13 years since his passing. No, you wouldn't have survived at all, because we turned terribly PC at that time. But now, 13 years later, I think men's roles are very greyed up. I think that we need to define those roles again. There is a place for men and women. We are very different. I think it's time to acknowledge that. I think the men have got a little confused about their role, you and I included, possibly through that 90s period. So I think if you're asking the question, could the likes of a Barry Crump exist in today's world? Yes, I think he could.
Now, what can you remember? 1959, you wrote that book. You were how old? You were just born.
I was born, yeah, 1959.
1959.
Just turned 50.
What's your first memories of your dad?
Very young, Town and Around was the show, and of course we didn't get a telly till about 65. But it was about 65, so I would have been 6 years of age, that Mum was watching Town and Around, and she'd say, well,
there's your dad.
There's me old man doing a skit, and he'd be ripping up a wedding dress and checking the oil in a car, and he was with friends where a car fell apart, cut in two completely. Yeah. So I was watching my father from that early age, only on telly. I can't recall ever meeting him till way later.
Yeah. Now, how much did you see of him? What happened? You didn't see much of your father after you were born. What was the story?
First recollection of meeting my father, we were 9. I was 9, and our birthdays are 3 weeks apart. And he rang up that day for the very first time. I remember talking to my dad, and he said, "Marty, our birthdays are coming up. How about we get together and have a night out?" I said, "It'll be fantastic." That was that morning. He turned up at 11 o'clock that night with 2 cheeseburgers and a hammer and buggered off. I never saw him for another 5 years. And that was the nature, that was just the way it was. No, and I never felt particularly bad about any of that. It was just how it was.
That's terrible, isn't it? Well, let's take a look at that. So, Dad was coming that night for the first time. You're a 9-year-old boy. He didn't turn up till 11:30 that night. And then he obviously... and then he went the next morning, and you never saw him for another 5 years. He
dropped in and woke me up and gave me a hammer and 2 cheeseburgers, and it shot through. That was it.
Wow.
And then the next time I saw him, I was 14. But at 14, I was working, and I was a big boy. I was 6'1.5" and 14.5 stone at 14. I was a very big boy. So he was in a shop, and I recognised him, and he came up to me and said, "You've got a lot of guts to look an adult in the eye like that." I said, "Is your name Barry?" Because he had a moustache, he was looking a little different. I said, "Is your name Barry?" He goes, "Yes." "Well, I'm your son Martin, how are you?" So that was our next meeting. And it's just how it was. And we knocked out together for a couple of days after that. And you know, but once you know Barry's background, once you know and you're armed with that information, there's no grudges, there's no victims here. He had it horrible. As an upbringing, he had it terrible. So he just couldn't take the responsibility of his own children, and that's just a fact.
So he had it terrible.
Shocking. It was shocking. So once you're armed with that, I can understand why he couldn't hang around for his own children. But in 1980, as he was doing as he just about launched the Toyota ads, he'd written a book on golf called Shorty, and we caught up. I took him to my golf course, and we spent a year together. So out of all the brothers, I had a full-on year with him, and it was great.
So how many brothers and sisters were there?
Well, 8 marriages between my mother and father, Gerard. So yeah, quite a few. So if you start working it out, Barry, there's a lot of talk about how many Barry had. He had 6 boys. Simple as that, he had six boys.
Yeah.
And when A Good Key Man is launched in a month or two, I'm going to meet a couple of my brothers for the very first time, I'm very excited about it. They've got some sense of belonging. They belong to a trust, which I have, which everybody's in. So we're all going to have a gathering then. So, so we're very lucky. It's good.
When you decided to have a family, you have a family, don't you?
Yes, I do, yes.
Did you say it's going to be different?
I didn't say anything at all. From the birth of my daughter, I just put out the arms as a dad does. Totally different generation to our dads, Gerard, who were down in the pub handing out cigars. We as dads today are actually in the birthing unit. We're there getting our own brows mopped and trying to cope with all of this going on in the room. So our bonding with our children is done totally different. I'm a hugely involved dad. My hours of work are great, which allows me the whole day to get involved with their schoolwork and their friends and what have you. So I've been there from day dot, and it's just how it is.
So if you had to, if a genie came out of a bottle and said, Martin, we'll give you another life with a father that's there all the time, maybe a father that's not well known, or exactly what you have, what would you say?
I'll stick to what I had.
Stick it. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Barry just did the best he could.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of documentaries that came out after his death. Was talking about, and his wives. He was violent. He was brought up violently. So yes, he could be violent, and he drank a lot, and he took a lot of drugs. There was many facets to my father. But let's have a look at the other side.
Yes.
The most mesmerising storyteller, Gerard, you'll ever be in the company of was my father. His books captured an atmosphere on a page. I remember him leaving us once. He said, look, I've got to get this on paper before it's too late. And he left us for about 4 months, and he wrote a book called Bullock Creek, and it was on high country sheep herding in the Otago country. A fabulous book. Again, he captured the heart of it, so he's left a great mark.
And he wrote in the end 24 books, didn't he?
24 books, did some calendars, he did photography, he wrote one song, he did poetry, he was multifaceted, was Barry.
Wow. So he had that wonderful creative spirit, a creative spirit. So you can't be all bad if you've got a creative spirit.
Too right.
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
and we've all benefited from that.
Yeah. So now, Martin Crump today, 2009.
Yep.
Let's talk about your radio show. Do you like talkback? Do you like being a talkback host?
Love it. If you know, sorry for saying this, Gerard, but for me it's better than television because sorry about that. But what you have is immediacy,
yes,
and
exactly.
you never know where you're going to go. I'll go to work tonight, I'll drop in a few topics, and we'll see where we go. And as the night goes on, just from what somebody said, we could go off in that direction or the other. But you're talking to people in New Zealand, from the top to the bottom of the country. You're getting a feeling of the pulse of the nation and what they feel and their opinions. And then you put your opinion in, and together you try and make some sense of it all. And I do love that.
Time is
10 p.m. to 1 a.m.
10. Yep.
Monday to Friday.
Wow. And hard to sleep after the show? You have to come down a bit? Or?
Believe it or not, very difficult. I know that you ex-frontman for the rumour, of course, and singing yourself. You finish a gig or you finish your show, you get little hyped up for your show.
Yes,
you are actually putting on a bit of a performance to a certain degree, as much as you are yourself. It's still a performance. So calming down takes me hours. 4 or 5 in the morning is usually my time when I go off to sleep.
Last cup of tea before into bed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but it's when I do my writing. It's when I do my time as well.
Now, finally, we've had a wonderful chat, and we could
Lots to talk
so
about.
much to talk about. But what about do you feel as though you've inherited the gene, the Barry Crump writing gene?
It's a pair of shoes I never wanted to put on at all, Gerard, because you're going to be compared to, and I didn't want that. But I can't help it. There's projects came up, and I started. And then I realised I can do a little of this. I don't know how far it can go, and I don't know that. But I've actually ventured out. I've put my toe in the water, and what's come up so far, it's okay. I'm enjoying it. I'm actually loving it. So writing, songwriting, lots of little other creative things. I'm very lucky for the variety.
Excellent. Now, Martin Crump, thank you for coming in today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're going to see you again.
Good to be here.